a luxury yacht, a celebrating president, and a captain who's had enough. When Navy veteran Daniel Hayes dares to confront Donald Trump face-to-face about the harsh realities of his trade policies, the champagne-fueled atmosphere takes a sharp turn. What begins as a festive evening on open waters turns into a tense, unforgettable standoff, one that could shift the tides of public opinion and power alike. The sun dipped low over the horizon, casting a golden glow on the water as the presidential yacht cruised along the eastern seaboard. The deck was alive with laughter, glasses clinking, and the confident voice of President Donald J. Trump echoing over the speakers. It was a celebration. His new trade deal had just been finalized, and according to him, it was the biggest win for American workers since Reagan. Dressed in a crisp Navy suit, Trump stood at the center of attention, surrounded by loyal aides, campaign donors, and a few top officials. Laughter rose in waves as he joked about his perfect tariffs and mocked the critics who had said it couldn't be done. To his supporters on board, the moment felt historic. But not everyone was smiling. Standing quietly at the edge of the deck, gripping the polished railing with one hand, was Captain Daniel Hayes. A decorated former U.S. Navy officer turned private shipping entrepreneur, Hayes had been invited aboard as a symbolic nod to American maritime strength. But as the yacht sliced through the waves, his thoughts churned heavier than the sea below. Hayes had spent 2 decades serving his country at sea. After retiring from active duty, he used every dollar of his savings, and a sizable loan, to start a small shipping company based in Norfolk, Virginia. His company employed 24 crew members, most of them veterans. They transported medical supplies, food, and electronics up and down the Atlantic coast, priding themselves on efficiency, reliability, and patriotism. That was before the tariffs. Trump's sweeping trade policy, which imposed harsh tariffs on key imports like fuel, machinery, and electronics, had sent Hayes's operating costs skyrocketing. The parts he needed for maintenance were now 40% more expensive. Contracts were being lost to larger competitors who could absorb the costs. He had already laid off 5 men in the past month. If things didn't change soon, Hayes feared he would lose everything. Still, he hadn't come to confront the president. He had come hoping, perhaps naively, that someone aboard might listen, that he might find an ally in the chaos. But the moment he heard Trump say, "These tariffs are saving the American worker," something in him snapped. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Mr. President," he called out, his voice sharp and steady, cutting through the music and conversation. The crowd quieted. Heads turned. Trump paused mid-sentence, eyebrows raised in surprise. "I'm Captain Daniel Hayes. I run a shipping company made up of veterans. And your tariffs are sinking us." There was a moment of stunned silence. Aides looked to one another, unsure whether to step in. Trump's expression tightened, the corners of his mouth drawing down as he turned fully toward Hayes. "You're interrupting a celebration, Captain," Trump said coolly, eyes narrowing. Not a smart move. But Hayes didn't flinch. "With all due respect, sir," he said, "I've spent my life serving this country. And I've never seen a policy hurt the little guy more than this one." The silence that followed was deafening. Everyone aboard sensed this was more than a passing outburst. This was about to become something bigger. A rare, unfiltered confrontation between a citizen and the commander-in-chief. And it was happening not in a press room, not on a debate stage, but under the golden sky, on the open waters of America's coast. The breeze picked up over the water, but the air on the yacht was thick with tension. Captain Daniel Hayes stood his ground, staring at the man whose policies had upended his world. Around them, the party had come to a halt. Glasses of champagne were left untouched. The music had been paused. All eyes were on the confrontation unfolding on the deck. Trump took a step closer, his voice sharp and theatrical. "You're a Navy man, Captain. You should know what it means to take a hit for the greater good." Hayes didn't flinch. "With all due respect, sir, we don't call it taking a hit when we lose livelihoods. We call it collateral damage. And right now, my crew and my business are your collateral." One of Trump's aides made a move toward the conversation, perhaps hoping to de-escalate, but Trump held up his hand. He was intrigued now, even a bit annoyed, but he loved the spectacle. "Do you even understand what these deals are doing?" Trump snapped. "They're forcing countries to play fair for once. No more free rides." Hayes nodded, calm but firm. "Maybe so. But they're also gutting small businesses like mine. I've got contracts with suppliers in Asia, Your tariffs made our equipment 30% more expensive overnight. You know what that means for an operation like mine? It means I have to cut corners, cut staff, or cut the anchor and sink. The president turned to the small crowd forming around them. You hear this guy? Crying about a few bucks while America's winning for the first time in decades. The laughter Trump expected didn't come. The faces in the crowd remained still, conflicted. Many of them were donors, businessmen, people who had seen the effects of these policies up close. Hayes took a step forward. Let me tell you what winning looks like for us. My mechanic, Raoul, 3 kids, hardworking, loyal, gone. I had to lay him off. My operations manager took a second job just to keep her family afloat. This isn't winning, Mr. President. It's bleeding slowly, quietly. Trump's jaw tightened. You think I don't know sacrifice? I've built things from nothing. With respect, sir, Hayes said, voice rising. You were born with a lifeboat. The rest of us are swimming with cinder blocks tied to our legs. The silence that followed was deafening. Trump's face flushed. You think you can stand here on my boat and lecture me on economics? It's not about economics, Hayes replied. It's about people. The ones who voted for you. The ones who believed you when you said you'd fight for them. I'm one of them. But you've left us in the storm. Trump glanced at his team, perhaps searching for an out. But there was none. The confrontation had become the centerpiece of the night. Then Hayes said something that stopped even Trump in his tracks. If your policies are so great, come visit my docks. See the empty warehouses. Talk to the families. Look into the eyes of the men I had to fire. Then tell me again that we're winning. Trump didn't answer immediately. He looked out at the water, jaw clenched, lost in thought for the briefest of moments. Then, brushing off his jacket, he muttered, "We'll see." As the yacht drifted slowly past the Statue of Liberty, a heavy silence lingered over the deck. Captain Daniel Hayes remained near the railing, the wind rustling his sleeves. President Trump had retreated below deck, leaving behind his aides and guests to stew in the tension. Some tried to return to light conversation, to laughter, to toasts. But the energy had shifted. Hayes's words, measured, direct, and rooted in lived experience, had left a mark. One of the younger aides approached Hayes cautiously. Captain, you really made your point tonight. I don't think anyone will forget what you said. Hayes gave a tight nod. I didn't come to make a point. I came to survive. Inside the cabin, Trump paced. He wasn't used to being challenged like that, especially not in his own space. And though he wouldn't admit it out loud, the confrontation had stirred something in him. A discomfort. A realization, perhaps, that policy lived not in spreadsheets, but in the hands of people who actually carried the weight. When he finally emerged again, the crowd had thinned. Only a few allies remained, standing awkwardly near the bar. He walked back to the deck, his eyes scanning for Hayes. Hayes hadn't moved. Trump stopped a few feet from him. You're a tough one, he said, his voice quieter now. Hayes didn't turn. I've had to be. Trump stepped closer. You know I didn't build this country alone. People like you, you're the backbone. But sometimes, it's hard to see past the noise. Then maybe it's time to listen more, Hayes said calmly. The two stood in silence for a long moment. Then, in an uncharacteristic gesture, Trump extended his hand. Hayes looked at it, then shook it. I can't promise change, Trump said. But I'll look into what you said. That's more than most get. Hayes nodded. That's all I ask. By morning, the moment had gone viral. Someone aboard had captured the entire exchange on their phone. The clip, titled "Navy Captain Confronts Trump Over Tariffs," racked up millions of views overnight. People across the political spectrum weighed in. Some praised Trump's willingness to return to the deck. Others hailed Hayes as the voice of the working class. But the most surprising development came from the White House. A week later, Trump announced a review of maritime small business regulations and foreign supplier tariffs. In his speech, he didn't name Hayes directly. But everyone knew what, and who, had sparked the change. For Hayes, it wasn't about fame or headlines. It was about the men and women on his boats. It was about keeping promises to the people who trusted him. That night, back at his dock, as the stars shimmered above the water, Hayes stood beside his vessel, Older, wiser, but still fighting. Because sometimes, a single voice, steady and clear, is enough to turn a tide.